What is up, my squirrelettes? It is I, your king, welcoming you to an actual on-time weekly update. Thank goodness for that. I am pretty excited to be able to talk about this week's update. Nothing really too huge, but there's a couple topics I wanted to touch on. But first things first, I actually have things that I got that I can show off. Yay, me gloating to start the update. But I think this is probably the most important one, and the only reason I say this is because I need all the help I can get. I'm going to be going through this. However, I do want to say that I'm going to probably be going through this after it's immediately relevant. Fallout 4 is going to be ending, not necessarily soon, but well, I guess as far as uploading is concerned, recording wise though, it is going to be ending very soon for me. I'm actually very close to the end of the main campaign, and once that ends, Fallout 4 is going to be taking a decently long break, probably a really long break actually. I'm deciding on how long I want to hold it out for. I'm debating on whether I want to bring it back in the fall or next year, like early next year, but next year nonetheless. I'm trying to decide what I want to do. The only thing is if I bring it back early next year, it's going to coincide with Skyrim, which, running two Bethesda games at once might be a problem. But yes, I've got the whole guide handy and everything, and I plan on looking through this. And who knows if it'll even help me all that much. I might even have everything down that I need to have down at this point in the game. But it's always a good thing to have, I would say, especially something as in-depth as this. So yes, that's something cool I got. As far as other purchases go, I did happen to get the new Ratchet and Clank. I have yet to play it. Actually, I'm going to be playing it tonight, the night I'm recording this. And oh my gosh, look at this cast though: Paul Giamatti, John Goodman, Sylvester Stallone, James Arnold Taylor, Bella Thorne. That is awesome. That is awesome, and I'm pretty sure that the same voice actors for the movie are doing this game. So yeah, that's pretty darn sweet. I am excited to play this game. I've heard nothing but good things about it. It's gotten awesome reviews. Everyone's saying it's just a joy to play. And it's freaking Insomniac. You can't go wrong with Insomniac, man. They just make some of the best stuff. They are such a good developer. I'm a huge fan. And, I'm not, like I said in the last update, I'm not, too familiar with Ratchet and Clank. But with this game, I intend to start. Other things. So alongside that, I as you can see, I haven't even opened it yet, but I did pick up Batman Arkham Knight. There was a discount on it at GameStop. It was just kind of a thing that was offered to all pro members, and I was like, I'll grab it while I'm there. I'm not, I haven't even finished Asylum, so I can't. I'm not going to be getting to this way too soon. But hey, it's something I do intend on playing all of the Arkham games through at some point. And then the last, and probably least, at least out of these three, I don't know, is Asura's Wrath. Now this game I know is almost entirely QuickTime event based, and I've played the demo for this, and I thought it was actually kind of fun. It's a very over-the-top spectacle game, and there's something about that I can greatly appreciate. I actually really like games that are campy. I enjoy campy games, and this game seems very much like that kind of game. And you know what? I have no problems with that whatsoever. Another game I got, and this is actually, I got it at my retro store, but that's not to say it's a retro game, is The Crew. Now, I kind of wanted to get this version on the PS4 more than the Xbox, but I couldn't find it for the PS4, so I just caved and got it on Xbox. The Crew, I guess that just kind of goes in line with all of the racing games from this generation I have on my Xbox One. But that aside, The Crew is, I've heard, mixed things. I heard that the Wild Run whatever expansion was actually really good, but the base game is not that great. I think the only reason I've got this game is just kind of for the nostalgia of the cross-country driving kind of thing. Just that kind of idea sounds fun to me, and is why I want to give it a shot, at least just to experience that. I got it for relatively cheap. I mean, I only got it for $15, so I can't complain too much So I'm excited to play that at some point. I also got two DS games, which is odd because I'm not the biggest fan of the DS, but it's really just all I play on it really is Pokemon and Picross. Picross is amazing. Um, I got Sonic Rush, which I've actually heard is pretty darn good. It's a decent game. One of the quote unquote better Sonic games, which, I like the really good Sonic games. Generations and Colors are actually up there as some of my favorite games of all time. I enjoy those games to death. Um, but, I don't know. Something about the Sonic formula I do quite like. However, this is a 2D Sonic game, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to think about it. But I do really enjoy me a good 3D Sonic game, actually. And then this one, it's an action RPG, which is why I was sort of hesitant to get it. But it's called Lunar Nights, okay? Now, if you've ever heard of the Boktai series, this is actually a series that was made by Kojima himself. It was kind of a whole series RPG with like a gimmick of, what was it, a solar... There was like a little add-on you had in your DS, like a little chip. I think it was actually either on the cartridge or something you attached to the cartridge, or I can't really remember. But basically, by actually going outside and like having like the sun go react on the chip or whatever, it would affect things in the game, and that's basically the extent of what I know. Lunar Nights is a re-release where that gimmick is no longer necessary. You don't have that anymore, really. You have ways around it, and kind of aside from that gimmick, I've actually heard this is a fantastic series. So that's something I've always wanted to play. And then last but not least, one of the better Nintendo 64 games made by none other than Rareware. I happen to get myself a box copy of Blast Corps, which is pretty darn sweet. I mean, pretty much anything Rareware put on the Nintendo 64, you can bet, was pretty darn amazing. Blast Corps, no exception to that. It's a very, very good game, but I happen to get a box copy, which is what has me pretty darn excited. So, yeah, pretty happy about some of my purchases that I was able to get. Some things I can add to the collection and also add to the possible first impressions list. I'm actually even debating making Ratchet and Clank a first impressions instead. Like, actually, when I sit down to play that tonight, I'll just record it. But we'll see. We will see. So, next thing I wanted to talk about is a kind of a topic that's been going around recently about crunch. It's the thing that I'm trying to remember, some developer came up and he talked about how crunch is actually beneficial in the community, for developers and stuff like that. And people need to stop being whiny and stuff like that about crunch and overworking and all that stuff. And I understand. I'm not saying his point of view. I don't understand that. I understand the fact that game development is difficult. Okay, it does require. It definitely the publishers will put deadlines and stuff like that, and you gotta meet deadlines if you're working under publishers, which is a big reason of why I can't stand the major publishers in this industry. EA, Activision, and Ubisoft specifically. I think that gaming would be so much better off without those three. I think if most console games were published straight through Sony or Microsoft themselves, or Valve helped out with a lot of Steam releases and stuff like that, which they tend to do a lot with Steam, a lot of Steam releases. But if they were individually published for the console that they're going to be on, a lot, by the company that owns the console, I think gaming would be in a way, way, way better spot. But we have the assholes at Activision, and we have the assholes at EA, and we have the assholes at Ubisoft, just frankly ruining video games a lot. And they're bad for the consumers and the devs. Okay, they've caused so many problems. And I'm gonna bring one up right now. This is just because I've heard quite a bit about this topic, obviously because I follow the game, and I'm gonna bring it up. But Bungie, okay, so from what I've heard, Now, for those who don't know, Bungie's actually been going through a lot of internal changes over the last couple of years. The CEO of Bungie, who's been there since before the first Halo came out, just recently left. Okay, that already kind of screams, that brings up red flags right there. It's like, whoa, why is he leaving? There was the whole thing about this expansion being pushed out, and then the sequel being pushed off, and all these things that came to light a few months ago. There was the whole thing right before Destiny came out with Marty O'Donnell and him not getting paid, and him actually suing Bungie and Activision, and winning the suit as well for a bunch of unpaid time and all that stuff. And there's been a lot of other devs that have left. There was the writer who left prior to Destiny's launch. That actually is what screwed over the entirety of the story for Destiny. He had pieced everything together, and then he bailed and went over to 343, and is now working on Halo again. And that's kind of why the entire story of Destiny fell apart, because he kind of just said bye and didn't really leave too many pieces for them to put it all together and figure it out themselves, which is ultimately a big part of why Destiny kind of came together so fragmented. And there's been other ones too. There's other devs that have left. There's some that have come on as well. Like I know the Mass Effect Andromeda writer just recently joined up Bungie, but it's like clearly this is a game, and clearly this is a company that is very, very heavily feeling the hammer of Activision coming down on them in a lot of ways. You can tell. You can absolutely tell if you've been following the game that there's a lot of things that they're doing that they would not be doing if it weren't for Activision, especially these microtransaction things and all that stuff. I mean, you can tell that there's a lot of Activision's influences in the worst parts of this game. And, it sucks, okay? It sucks to be overworked, all right? I know personally, all right? I work a labor job, all right? I work a job where I work at a lumber yard, kind of, but I work in the door division, okay? So I deliver for homes and businesses and stuff like that. I deliver doors, interior and exterior, and I deliver like your moldings that you'll see, like your base, your case, your crown, all this stuff. That's what I deliver. Okay, that's what I do, and I sit in the truck and we take it out to the jobs and I unload it there, but all by hand, 100% by hand. And sometimes it'll be apartments where we'll have to carry it upstairs, and this stuff isn't light. It weighs a lot. It can get pretty heavy. I mean, some of the doors I'll carry that I'll have to carry by myself can weigh up to 250 pounds. I'll be teaming doors with my one other guy that weigh up to 500-600 pounds. I mean, it's a very physically demanding job. And it's a job that is also very much dictated by the time of year. In the winter, not a lot of people are building because of the weather and stuff like that. So, I'll maybe barely pull 8-hour days, and, 8 hour will be my minimum, and I'll work 40 hours a week. There will be times in the summer where everybody wants all their stuff now, and it's just constant mayhem because, everybody's working, and I'll be working 12, 13, 14, 15 hours a day, 5 days a week. And people who follow me on Twitter absolutely know I do talk about my work a ton. I talk about how it constantly puts me out. It's tons and tons of hours, and it does. It feels like that entire season of summer is, crunch time. There's a lot that needs to be done, and a lot demanded of me and my coworkers, in such a limited amount of time. I'll be coming in at 4 a.m, and I'll be getting off at 7 in the evening, 8 in the evening that same day. I mean, I won't have time to do anything, and videos have suffered for it in the past, and it's hard. It sucks. It absolutely sucks, but I have to just bite the bullet, do it, and yeah, I mean, it really does suck. And so what I can see is, I can see people's plight, but I can also see, why it shouldn't be so freaking unexpected that some people do have to work crazy overtime. They should always be paid for it. Okay, I get paid for my overtime. All right, I always do. Um, okay, and I think that's always something that should be done. When you're not paid for your overtime, that's when it gets really, really silly. However, the difference between a job like mine and a job like game development is my job is actually not very mentally taxing. Okay, mine is grunt work is mostly what it is. There's not a lot of, I don't have to be thinking about too many things at once while I'm doing stuff. Um, Game development, on the other hand, and stuff like that. I mean, and it can apply to a lot of other gaming related things. I mean, I know people have brought it up and compared it to YouTubing and stuff like that, which yeah, of course, I know about as well. Does require a lot of mental work. Okay, and there's something that overwork, overworking people causes, and that is stress. Okay, now when you're stressed, obviously, it's a little bit harder to do mentally taxing things, clearly. So, as such, their work will suffer for it, all right? That's something that most companies fail to take into consideration. They fail to realize that the mental sanity of their workers is going to inhibit their performance and thus inhibit the product overall, all right? And see, that's really the major argument that needs to be made about this whole idea of crunch time, of overworking employees. Because it doesn't apply to every job. It really doesn't. But there are jobs where, yeah, you're just gonna have to keep going at it, and you have to keep grinding your teeth, get it done. Yeah, hey, you're getting paid overtime for it. I know it sucks. It's hard. It's hard work. I mean, typically that's what a job is it's hard work, but you're making the money for it. And game development, I think, is a sort of an exception. I really don't think that falls into the same category. And I've heard of all these horror stories of these awful conditions that game devs have had to work in, and I just look at it, and that's a big reason why I was like, I don't ever want to be a game developer, because I've had a lot of people come to me. I actually have Fun fact, I actually have family that works for, and I think I've actually said this before, I have family that works for Electronic Arts. Um, he specifically works for EA Sports, mostly on sports games. I know he's a huge part of the FIFA series, but he is like he's like a second cousin, I guess, kind of a second cousin. I don't really know what you'd call it. He's my mom's cousin. I don't really know what the exact term for that is, but I think that's the second cousin. But he he's come to me before, and he's asked to, because he knows I'm very interested in games. He knows about my YouTube channel, and he goes, have you ever considered getting a job in game development? And every single time I've been like, absolutely not, because I'm not a person that handles stress too well. I'm just not. Typically the way I handle stress is I kind of shut down. I just kind of drop everything, stop, and go, I need to focus on something else, or I'm going to kill someone. Like that's kind of how I approach stress. So, and I know that for an actual job where you need to cope with stress, that is not a good mentality to have at all. But it's just kind of how I've always coped with things. Now, obviously, I could change that if necessary, but it's like, I'd rather pursue other careers, okay? I would much rather pursue other careers, because that is not something I can do. So, props to these game devs for putting up with that. And, you employers that overwork these people, there are certain circumstances where, yes, you can do it a little. Like, I can understand them maybe working 45, 50 a week, but if you're making them put 80s in a week, you're retarded. Like, you are simply retarded for doing this to these people, because, not only is it mostly unfair, if you're doing it consistently, it's downright wrong. If you're doing it very rarely, yeah, it's still really stupid. I wouldn't say it's, downright evil if you're doing it very, very rarely, but still, of course, no game dev is going to listen to this, but that needs to be taken into consideration. And, especially if you're an employee, that's something that you need to be bringing up, to your higher ups, being like, sure, I'll work these hours. And this is just kind of, good practice, I guess, as being an employee is go, sure, I can work these hours and I will work these hours if you absolutely make me to, but I cannot be held responsible for what I will do, um, or do incorrectly when under such intense pressure. Okay, because I'm just a human being, basically. That's that's kind of just something you have to say to people. I mean, I've had to actually bring that argument up, where I work, because you know when you're not sleeping, even the least mentally taxing of jobs can become mentally taxing. So yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts on that, really. I mean, I didn't want to drag on that too much, but I know it's kind of suddenly become a hot topic ever since this guy talked about this, and I can totally see why, because it's a bit insane. It's like you're not really thinking properly if you really honestly believe that severely overworking any employee is a good thing. But yes, and then I guess the only other thing I want to talk about is that, and this is a very, very recent thing, but hey, Red Dead Redemption 2 is, it's got leaks coming, so probably going to hear about it at E3, and they're saying it's going to be a prequel, which honestly I think is the better way to take it, because really, I mean, yes, he is sort of a blank slate character, but John Marsden is also kind of what makes Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Redemption, rather than just some Western game. Not to say that that's a very common thing. It's a very rare genre, unfortunately. But you got to have John Marsden as a part of it. And so maybe, a Red Dead Redemption where he's actually the outlaw that he was previous to the events or prior to the events of Red Dead Redemption. That's, I think, is a pretty darn awesome idea. So I'm very excited for that. I actually haven't played the first Red Dead Redemption all the way through. I was going to Let's Play it, but I decided against it just because it's not really as much my cup of tea, nor is it a game that I'm particularly affluent at all. So, I mean, it might happen at some point in the future, but I'm pretty excited for that because I know Red Dead Redemption's a pretty awesome series and just another reason to love Rockstar. And I know I have a few friends that are really huge into the series, so that was pretty exciting news to hear about. But anyway, that's going to be it for this weekly update. Thank you all so very much for watching. And speaking of overwork, I'm going to work my butt off. I'm going to work my butt off because I know I love my channel and I'm passionate about it. To try to make sure that videos stay regular in the future, and Pokemon will end hopefully sometime soon, hopefully in the next week or two, because man, that series. Thank you all so very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.